Well, this has had plenty of time to dry. I'm starting to clean up a little bit here. There's a lot of old glue bits and just stuff that's not wood. I'm just scraping away at. I'm gonna clean up this area where the extension was as well at some point. I want to make sure we have a good glue surface when we go to glue this back on here. So this is going to need cleaned up. The neck itself, I haven't taken a huge look at. Same shtick there. It's going to need cleaned up. And then, as for this side, there's a little bit to do. I did end up noticing that I tore out one little piece right here. This came out right there. I think I'm going to go ahead and glue that back on. We'll do that right now while I'm thinking about it. Just to find some glue. And a clamp. We'll try that one. Alright, my tip is covered up, filled with glue, so we'll just put a little glue on here. Spread it out with my finger. We should be doing good. So that'll fix that dovetail now, the only little spot that was a problem. Not like that. I'll try this way. There we go. So that'll fix that little spot there, and I'll get started cleaning up his body while that dries. So we'll set that back there. We'll close this glue back up. So I don't knock it over and have a glue mess. We'll come back to the body here. It's getting there. Well, I've got everything clamped back together here just because I wanted to see where the angle was now that I've actually removed all the junk, and it's still pretty much just as bad as it was. So we are definitely going to be removing some off of the heel to be changing the angle here. Probably a lot because the angle is really bad. So I'll go ahead and unclamp all this stuff. Get this neck back out of here, and we'll take a look at doing what we gotta do. So what we're gonna end up having to do here is remove quite a bit from this bottom of this heel, and once again, nothing up at the top of the heel. That way that pulls that angle back, but it doesn't actually move this point into the guitar any. Oh boy, there's going to be a lot to do here. I am probably going to start the same way I always start these. I'll measure off some here on the back. I usually start with about 25 thousandths. This is going to take more than that, but it does help me get a solid line. We'll start with a little more than that. I just scratch this on the bottom of the heel, just so I've got a solid straight line across. So basically I can take all of that off there and taper that down to nothing. There's going to be a couple ways I'm going to try to do that. I've got some chisels. We'll cut with chisels. I'll cut with all sorts of tools. If I need to, I can cut with, I got scalpel blades around here and all sorts of stuff. I'll probably want a wider chisel than that one. But we'll get started here. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to carve a wedge out of both sides of this heel so that it sinks in a little bit more at the bottom to raise that neck angle. This is going to be fairly time consuming because of how bad it is and in order to keep everything straight. Because that's the other goal, is I need straight lines everywhere. That's why I carved a line across the back, so I can keep that totally straight. I need my wedge to be totally straight so that it mates up with the guitar again perfectly. I may have to stop and sharpen chisels again a little ways into this. Alright, so I've been carving on this for a little while now. I put a piece of tape on here all the way around to keep my straight lines. I figured that actually might help me out a little bit, so I got a high contrast straight line. I pretty much carved out what I wanted. I was going to clamp this back up and see where we were at. So I'll clamp this back the way I had it between the neck and the heel. I'll clamp it on the top here. Alright, so yeah, that should be meeting really well up in the top corner, and actually it seems to be meeting really well all the way across. So now let's take my straight edge here and see where we're at. Oh, it's better. It's way better. We were way down in. I don't know how I can show that. I'm just a hair under at this point. We were way down here and we moved up. I can't really show that, but we're still not there. We could probably come what I've done again. So that's probably what I'll do. I think my calipers are still set where they were. I'll just mark another line, and we'll take off exactly what I took off the last time. But again, and then we should be doing good. Alright, so I got this all carved out here, and I wanted to show this off. We're floating over that bridge, and it's floating good enough for me. The seam looks really good. And we're over that bridge. That is a huge improvement from where we were. We were probably a 1/4 inch under that bridge. And now we're up over it. So I think we're doing good on the heel. Now the problem I'm going to have next is that because I've moved the internals inside that neck joint, the dovetail is going to be loose. So I'm going to have to wedge it back up to be nice and tight. So now that I got this all back together, time to take it all back apart. So yeah, you can see just there when I pulled that out, that dovetail is super loose now. There's all sorts of movement in it. So what we're going to have to do is put some wedges on each side here to, well, I say wedges, I mean shims. We're going to have to put some shims on each side here to help bulk that up so that it's actually tight enough to hold in there. So I'll go ahead and make some. We'll get some like nice mahogany because that's what the neck is. We'll thin it down real thin. The thinner I can get it, the better generally. Obviously I don't want to go too thin and have to add more to it, but the thinner I can get it, the closer we are to final dimension, and it won't take nearly as long to get it to final, to get dropped back in there. So I'll go make some shims, and then we'll come back and glue them on. Alright, so I got two little mahogany shims. They're a little oversized yet, but that's okay. It's easier to carve them down perfect size once they're glued on. And I'm just going to glue these on. These pieces of mahogany came from the cutoffs of a guitar neck, so they should fit right at home here on a guitar neck. So that should be good there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a couple of wedges in here to help kind of straighten this out, and then we're going to put a couple clamps on there. Alright, so that seemed to give me some good squeeze out, so we'll let that sit for a couple of hours at least to get good and dry, and then we'll come back and we can start fitting this back into this. We should be doing good after that. So we've had a little bit of a gap here, but we're ready to get going back at this. I've got the shims on the Dovetail trimmed down so that they'll actually fit to go in here, but as you can see here, we're not going to full depth before we get stuck. So we need to work on fitting the Dovetail to the inside. And to do that, we'll get some carbon paper out. I'll trim this real quick. I'll take that strip, wrap it around here on our shims. And put it in there. And then that carbon paper will transfer a dark mark where it makes contact and gets tight. So you can pull that back out. Well, you can see there's a big dark mark there. There's some up there. There's quite a couple places on this side. So we'll start working at carving those away. I'm just going to take a chisel to start off here. And real carefully shave that away. Just a little bit more there. I'm trying to do this where you can see it, which is causing me to hold this in a kind of funky direction, but it's working pretty good. I'll flip this around so I can do it real quick. I'll go to the other side, just take off those dark spots. Alright. So just like that, we trimmed off all those dark spots, and then we get to do it again. And this is going to take me a little while, because you see how much we've got left. There's enough to get my whole hand in there, or my fingers in there, so we got a ways to go before we're sitting flat. But this helps get this absolutely perfect in shape. I got some more spots here. And the other side, yeah. So this is going to take me a little while, so I probably won't record a whole lot more, because it's going to be repeating this step over and over until we get in there. Alright, I think we're getting really close here. I'll set this down We'll put this neck in here. We're getting really, really close. I've shaved this down pretty good. We might be there with a clamp to get that last little bit. I think we're there. Basically now we're ready to glue this thing back up. The neck angle should be better. I don't have my thing to check it right now, but it should be. I'll grab that before we do anything. But what I'm going to do before we glue this back up is I'm going to go buff it. There's a couple of red spots. I think you've been able to see them. I'm going to try and see if I can't work some of that out on the buffing wheel. And that's a lot easier to do if we're in two pieces. So I don't have to work with the neck hanging out. I can get into all these spots. I may want to try and clean this up a little bit more as well. I'm not real sure how we're going to do that. I'm just going to try this real quick since we're sitting here. That might be the way to do it. But I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup before we glue this thing up. And then once we're ready to glue this thing up, we should be not very far off of being totally done with this thing. Yeah, I'll work on this a little bit. I'll go buff it and then we'll come back and look at glue. Alright, so this is looking good. I've tried my best to clean this body up. I've still got some of that red on there. It definitely started to come out because it started to turn my wheel red, my buffing wheel. But it definitely didn't all come out. It's a shame, but I don't really want to sit there and... I'm basically removing a little bit of finish as I do it. And I don't want to do that too much. It's kind of going to be what it is. If I wanted to get all of it out, I'd have to really actually sand this finish. And I really don't want to do that on an older instrument. I'll see what the customer wants to do with this, but for now I'm just going to leave it as it is. I need to maybe do a couple fills yet, but we're focusing on the neck. It's looking good. I think we're ready to glue it up. I did check the angle just before I got started, and it is looking good. Okay, so we're ready for glue. I'm going to sit down here. We're going to put some glue on this thing. I've got a couple clamps ready, I think. So we're going to start gluing up this dovetail. I'm just going to put some glue on here. We're going to do the whole thing all at once, the dovetail and the fretboard extension. It generally works out a little bit better for me if I do it that way. Got a paintbrush to spread the glue. I want good coverage. That's looking really good. Okay, now I got to do the dovetail. This is the part that likes to make the mess because it runs around on the inside. I'll show you there. We got good coverage all the way around that. Now we're going to do the next side. I'll coat all the surfaces in glue just to be certain that I have 100% coverage. I know I'm doubling up here because they're mating surfaces, but I just want to make sure there's glue on 100% surface area. Not liking the way it's going in here. I need a little bit more. It's fighting me. That looks better. This side looks pretty good. We'll just be sure. Might need some more glue sometime soon. All right. 100% coverage. So you see there, we got it all on the extension and all around the dovetail. So we should be good. Stick that thing in there. So I've got problems where my clamps like to slide around on the body because of, you know, the smooth finish. Even with the rubber ends should prevent me from denting, but the leather helps give me some grip because of the surface area. This is not working for me. All right, one more time. We'll go this way. This is harder for you to see what I'm doing, but I'm working over here this way. I ain't gotta deal with it too much falling out. So that should squeeze it in. I am also going to go from the heel to the heel block, the heel of the neck to the heel block on the other side. The tail block, that is. That helps add any extra tiny amount of angle that I need. Helps it get pulled back. So make sure I have all the angle. Well, squeeze that all the way down. And that's looking good. That's hard to see, I know, but it is looking good. We need to do not much on that fretboard extension. It's actually clamped down pretty good, but we'll throw something on there anyway. See if I can't set this down up here. Try to put a neck block in to hold it up higher. We'll grab a couple of these wooden ones at least. At least one of them. Just throw on the end here. Help. Oh yeah. That squeezed some glue out. That's good. That's what we like to see. I don't know if I have any small. Let's see if we go to one side and the other. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that should be good. I'm gonna clean off my paintbrush here and see if we can't clean up some glue. Squeeze out around this fretboard extension. I'm really liking that. I think that's looking really good. So we'll give that some time to dry, quite a bit, just to be sure that it's totally set. And then we should be working on setup after that. I hope. We'll let that set up, and we'll come back to it. Alright, so of course it would turn out to be, as soon as I get this thing going, getting really close to being done, I'm going to get sick, and that's going to slow me down again. So between the last clip and now, I've started to get a little sick, and that slowed me down a whole bunch. But we're going to keep trying to get this thing done. I've been trying to clean out this fret slot so we can put this fret back in. And basically I'm just taking my saw here and cleaning that out. There's a little bit of super glue from gluing down some chips when we pulled the fret out, and probably some regular wood glue squeeze out from gluing down the fretboard extension that we want to clean out of there. You can see all the light chips. That's all glue. So we want to make sure it's clean so that when we put that fret back in there, it goes all the way in. It doesn't get stuck on any junk. I think we're just about there. I'm going to do just a little bit of cleanup there on the surface as well. We are, of course, going to clean this again once we level the frets. We'll clean the whole board up. But I just want to hit underneath where the fret is going to be. Make sure it'll seat well. Alright, that should be good. Go find the fret. Here we are. The fret goes right in there. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit of wood glue in the hole. Some soft wood glue. Some new wood glue. I can put a little bit of ebony dust in if I need to that way. The wood glue itself won't hold the fret in really, but it will work good as a filler if I need to put some ebony dust or rosewood dust in to help fill any gaps. If these two holes are maybe a little visible or whatever it is that I need. Okay. Put that fret in there then. And then just tap that down. I'd say it's hard to be any more perfect than that. And so, just to be sure, I don't know how I got that glue up there, but just to be sure we fill any gaps, I've got a little piece of rosewood out. It works really good for making rosewood dust. But I'm just gonna do that on. And we'll work that in with my finger to any little gap. Might be having some glue on the surface. Alright. I'll let that glue set up so that we have a nice good filler, and then we'll come back and I'll just kind of blow off any excess, and we'll work on leveling those frets next. Alright, so I just straightened this neck out so that I know we're working on flat frets. And we're going to level these frets. They've got a couple of grooves in them I want to work out. They're very much tall enough that they could use it and it won't hurt anything. So it should be good for them. I'm going to put this truss rod cover back on since we're sitting flat now. Alright, looking good. Should be a real light leveling here. I mean, there's a couple of grooves and spots, so it shouldn't take too much, I don't think, but I want to make sure I get it good. Alright, I think that's probably good. I was maybe even a little further than I was expecting to take it, but I think that was just the bare minimum to get out what I wanted out. We're going to come through here and crown these now. because I just ran that file across the top here, there's going to be flat spots all the way across, and the strings are going to buzz on those flat spots, so we got to make these round again. We'll do that with this file here, this crowning file. Alright, that's looking pretty good. What we'll do now is come through with some sandpaper and start sanding this down. This will take any of those file marks out and start shining them up. I'm starting with some 600, and especially down at this fretboard extension where those frets got dirty from me heating them up and those oils coming out. This will clean that little bit that's left off and start working those file marks out. That should be good on the 600. We're moving to 1200 now. All right. So we do some 1200, and then we'll move on to the micro polishing pads that I always like to use. I believe this is number 1 here. These work the same way as the sandpaper, but they go really high grit and get a nice mirror finish. So I've gone ahead and polished all these frets. They look really good. What we need to do now is clean up the board. This works a little bit better if I can angle it a little bit. I'll start at this end. I'm just going to take a razor blade and scrape across the fingerboard. I have to work across the radius to keep the radius. If I just sat in the middle and scraped and scraped and scraped, I'd work it flat, and I don't want to do that. Alright, that's looking pretty good. We will oil that now. Here in a second. I will take some of my Be Good Wood oil and just run a bead, and we'll work that in. And then suddenly, just like that, it's looking really good. So we've got a nice conditioned board with some nice polished frets. I need to stick the nut back on here. It did come off when we were getting started. I'll rub off some of that excess oil. I'm just going to use a little bit of glue to re-stick that nut. I'll go grab it. So I'm going to use some of this super fatted glue, and I'm just going to do just a dot, just to hold this nut in place. I don't want to like stick this down and have it never come out, because if anything ever has to be done with it, you want it to come out pretty easy. I just want enough to make sure it doesn't move around while we're getting set up here. The strings will mostly hold it in place anyway, but that'll just make sure it doesn't fall out while I'm working with it. So with that being done, I think we're ready to think about a setup here. I have been working on a saddle for this. I've got a piece of antler started to get cut out. It's still maybe a hair thick and obviously way too big. I've got a shape drawn on it. I need to go cut this out so we actually have a saddle shape. And, well, it's not crazy thick because it'll start to go in that slot. So we'll cut it out first and see where we are, but we're not too far off of a setup. Alright, so I've gone ahead and got strings on this and this saddle in here. This is just a blank at this point. I'm trying to kind of speed through this last bit so I can get this thing done. The action is still pretty high because we're barely more than a blank at this point, but it's low enough that I can get a measurement off of it. We're sitting about 135 thousandths on the bass side. And on the treble side, about 115. I want those down to be about 90 thousandths on the bass side and about 80 thousandths on the treble side. So we're talking 45 and 35. That's how much I need to lower it here. I have to double that back here off at the saddle so that I get it where I want it here. So double of 45 is 90 and double of 35 is 70. So I have to take 90 thousandths off of here and 75 or 70 thousandths off of here, and that looks good to me, honestly. That saddle is sitting pretty high at the moment. I think that's going to be just about perfect. So I'll lower the strings here and we'll mark up the saddle after I get it out. So I've got this saddle marked up here, and you can see I've got little Sharpie marks on each end, and I've got my calipers. They're opened up to 90 thousandths. So that's for the bass side, so I'm just going to scratch a line on there. And then I will move this to the 70 thousandths I need for the treble side. And do the same thing. So hopefully you can see there. There's a line on both sides. Now what I can do is just take this to the sander, my disc sander, and knock it off to those lines. Then we will have knocked off exactly what we need. So this will go back in and it'll be perfectly the right size. So I'll do that and we'll come back and we'll set this thing back up. Well, I'd say this one is going to be done. I got the action back down right where it should be. This thing is playing better than it has in a long time, I'm sure. That neck angle was so bad. This bridge is now well attached. I think we're doing really good. I got a couple more things like trimming string ends I got to do. A couple maybe little cleanup things before this is ready to go back. But I think for video purposes, we are done. It's going to be a night and day difference from when I got this to sending it back. So I hope you enjoyed watching this big neck reset on this guild, and a little bit of bridge work and a little bit of cleanup. It should be really good, last a long time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.